Hello guys, and welcome back to Phat Pack Magic. We're in round 2 of Darkside's FNM Pioneer event, and today we've got something really cool for you. It's Vince Mallow on the left, playing Bant Company, and on the right is Nate Sage, looking for that revenge rematch from a previous event. Now, Nate is going to be down a card, but he's going to be on the draw, so he might be able to get back up to 7. However, Vince is going to give Nate a free shock by playing out a breeding pool untapped and casting a Llanowar Elves on his turn 1. Nate looking to make his own turn 1 play. He's got quite a few things in going. He's got Sacred Foundry, he's got the Battlefield Forge. The question is, what turn 1 threat does he want to deploy? And he's really deciding on that turn 1 land, and it's going to go for a shock land, and he's going to play out Soulscar Mage, a 1-2 with prowess with an incredibly relevant ability against most decks. Now Vince is going to play out, Vince is going to not attack with his Llanowar Elves, instead cast another Llanowar Elves, and then chain that into a Selfless Spirit, a 2-1 flying cleric. But Nate, he's not too worried about indestructible creatures because the Soulscar Mage is going to put -1/-1 counters on top of them. Nate is very methodical. Normally, people say, oh, you're playing red decks, it's auto-win, it's auto-play, but there are so many chains of just how do you want to spend your burn on creatures and try and get through on the creature damage end, or do you want to just try and burn them out? And that is incredibly difficult because of the prowess triggers. Nate is doing the math in his head. He's got Eidolon of the Great Revel, but he's going to swing in for 1. Vince says no blocks. Go to damage. Nate looks like he's got an effect. Deciding if he wants to use it or not. Looks like he is. And it's a Wizard's Lightning. Effectively a lightning bolt that's going to deal 3 damage to Vince, bringing him down at 15. And then Prowess Trigger with the Soulscar Mage doing 2 more damage, and Vince is already down to 13. And it's starting on his turn 3. But Nate has a follow-up. It's another Soulscar Mage and passes the turn back. Vince untaps. He's up to 5 mana potentially with a land. Kind of lining up those Llanowar Elves. They make great chump blockers after you got the ramp out. But it looks like Vince is going to deploy a Tireless Tracker and then play his land for turn, making a clue token, and that is going to be problematic for Sage because Tireless Tracker is going to have a really fat body in getting those +1/+1 counters and then turning all of his land drops into a draw a card effect. So Nate has got to get through it, but most difficult is the fact that Selfless Spirit is on the field. However, 2 Soulscar Mage means that a burn spell is going to clear out that Tireless Tracker because it'll deal -1/-1 counters. Now the question is, does Nate want to deploy that Eidolon of the Great Revel? Because Vince's deck is mostly 1, 2, and 3 drops, and every single one of those is just going to be 2 damage on top of it, and Nate probably won't have to do much afterwards. But he's eyeing that Boros Charm, and he's got Skewer the Critics as well. Now the unfortunate thing with Skewer the Critics is that it's not going to provide the Soulscar Mages with prowess triggers unless he can get some burn damage in beforehand. But he swings him with both. Vince lining up his blocks. And Nate deciding on whether or not he wants to fire off that Boros Charm. He takes 1 damage from the Battlefield Forge, goes down to 16, Boros Charm at your face, bringing Vince down to 9. Prowess trigger on both is going to leave them trading 1 card for 1 card, but Vince is going to activate the clue token, drawing a card, and whenever he sacrifices a clue, he puts a 1/1 counter on the tracker. Vince losing the Selfless Spirit, and Nate losing a Soulscar Mage, but Vince is down to a very shallow 9 life. Now, I wonder if Vince was kind of sad about that, given that he just drew Deputy of Detention, which would have exiled both of Nate's Soulscar Mages. But he plays his land for turn, getting a clue token trigger, and now he's going to start the damage. swinging in at Nate, dealing 4 to him, and bringing him down to 12. And he follows up his turn with the Knight of Autumn. And the Knight is going to give him a nice chunky 4 life, and it's going to be great defensively because Nate can't swing into the Knight of Autumn without trading unless he uses a spell to give the Soul Scar Mage +1/+1, effectively fogging out a whole turn from Nate. Nate has no other choice. He has to go in. He's got to start the pressure. Soul Scar Mage is blocked by Knight of Autumn, a 2/1 creature. So he needs a prowess trigger to make it live through this combat. He takes 1 damage from Battlefield Forge. Here's another Boros Charm at Vince's face. Prowess trigger kills off the Knight of the Autumn. Nate follows it up with the Skewer the Critics at Vince's face, bringing him down to 6. But Nate is almost out of gas. He's got a Ramming Up Ruins in play, so eventually those lands can cash in for 2 damage. But the question is, can Vince get through it? And it looks like he just drew a clutch creature for this deck. He plays his land for turn, gets a clue token, but Scavenging Ooze is hiding out in his hand, and Vince looks like he's going to deploy it. Yep, here comes the Ooze, and immediately it starts chewing up creatures, gaining Vince a life total. A single life total can be the make or break for Nate, against Nate. And Vince exiles another creature, gaining another life. And while Nate is tapped out and Vince has plenty of creatures to eat and plenty of mana to go through, he's going to be able to make that Scavenging Ooze fat and able to dodge a lot of Nate's removal. And now, Tireless Tracker crashes in, dealing 5 to Nate, bringing Nate down to 5. He's on a 1-turn clock. Can Nate get through this damage? Nate needs a really disgusting series of events here because he's got 2 blockers in hand and potentially 9 life he's got to chew through. But here comes Eidolon of the Great Revel, and I think that card might just be a little late on the gas here. Yep. Nate scoops it up. Vince takes the win. It's 1-0, and that Scavenging Ooze was incredible against Nate's deck. However, we're going to take a quick break for our sponsors, and we'll be right back. Hey guys, I want to give a quick shout out here to Your Playmat. These guys offer fully customizable playmats, card sleeves, and foil playmats. Now, I wouldn't be talking to you guys about these mats unless I personally believed in them. So check this out. Yeah, that is the Mox Jet Altar on the Phat Pack Magic draft videos, and we put that on a mat. And here's the best part. Your Playmat believes in me and believes in my channel and therefore believes in you guys. So that's why they're doing a special discount code only for Phat Pack Magic YouTube subscribers. Put in the code PPM15 and get 15% off any playmat you order. Foil, regular, anything you're looking for. PPM 15. So what are you guys waiting for? Go make your own mats and show off your style. And we're back. Both players have drawn up an opening hand, but it's Vince's turn to mulligan this time, and right now he's drawing up a second 7 and deciding on whether or not he wants to keep. Now, his hand looks okay. It looks fine, maybe a little bit land heavy, but creatures and spells, that's what you need. You can't go too far down. Now he's going to tuck a land to the bottom, and Nate starts off, inspiring Advantage into a Soulscar Mage, a turn 1 if there ever was one, and here comes Vince playing out a Llanowar Elves after shocking himself with an untapped, pretty Temple Garden. Nate takes his turn, plays out a Ramming Up Ruins, and looks like here's Monastery Swiftspear, tapping another red, shock, kills off the Llanowar Elves, prowess trigger on both, crashes in at Vince, bringing him down to 14. Now, 3-color decks are incredibly greedy with mana bases, and Nate's deck, mono red, is just primed to take advantage of it. But Vince starts off his turn with a Baffling End, exiling a Soulscar Mage and leaving Nate with the Monastery Swiftspear, but he doesn't look too bothered by it. Removal is just something he's going to have to deal with. He plays out a Sacred Foundry, going down to 17, and then deciding on what he wants to play next. Looks like he's got a Gitu Lava Runner, but the question is, does he have another instant or sorcery that he wants to deploy to give out that haste? Looks like he does, taking 1 damage off that Ramming Up Ruins. Here's a Lightning Strike to your face. Vince is down to 11, and then both creatures crash in. Now he's down to 7. This is incredibly dangerous for Vince. He needs some creatures, he needs some life, but all he's got is a Hollowed Fountain to play for land for turn. He has to take 2 damage, but he can pull out the Knight of Autumn, gaining 4 life and a valuable blocker. Now Vince is settled at 9, but that life total can quickly diminish. Nate draws for turn. Plays 2 mana. Here's a Searing Blood, 2 damage to the Knight of Autumn, and then 3 damage to Vince's face. Prowess trigger on the Swift Spear, and then Nate crashes in for 4. Vince is down to 2, and Nate on his second main, here's Soulscar Mage. Pass the turn back, buddy. What do you got? Unfortunately, Nate is out of gas, but it looks like his car took the trip. Vince desperately needs some life gain here. He's got Scavenging Ooze in hand. He's got an Elvish Mystic. I mean, he can play the Ooze, gain a life, go to 3, and then pray that Nate doesn't draw anything off the top. And that looks like what he's going to do. Playing out the Ooze, exiling the Knight, gaining a life, and making it a 3/3 duder. Nate, much to Vince's delight, has only drawn a land for the turn. Plays it down. He's got to keep up the pressure though. He doesn't mind losing a creature as long as Vince goes down to 1. And that seems to be the map that he's taking the line of play on. And, I mean, to be honest, that's the correct line of play, because Nate's deck is just full of completely live draws. I mean, Vince will go down to 1, but then a land off the top means that Ramming Up Ruins is going to deal 2 damage to Vince. Granted, Scavenging Ooze can gain a lot of life, but he can do the Ramming Up Ruins in response, and Vince will only have 1 creature to exile in the yard? Man, Vince is in a really tight situation here. Nate, doing the math. A burn spell off the top also just means he wins. I mean, you gotta do it. Here it comes. 4 damage at you. Vince eats the Get To Lava Runner, takes 2 damage, goes down to 1, draws for a turn, and it's a Love-Struck Beast that he can kind of use to make another 1/1 blocker. But Vince is just dead to almost anything off the top of Nate's library at this point. He's gonna eat a Get To Lava Runner, gaining 1 life, putting a counter on the Scavenging Ooze, and passes the turn back. Nate has drawn a Searing Blood for the turn, but it's not gonna be enough. He still has to cast it. It's going to deal 2 damage to the Scavenging Ooze. However, with Soulscar Mage, it's going to remove those +2/+2 counters. +1/+1 counters. And Nate swings in. Now, Vince can block 1, pump his Ooze, gain a life, only lose 2 life, and go back down to 1. Is that going to be the line of play here? And Vince just scoops it up. He can't win from 1 life. He's going to be under way too much pressure, especially with the Ramming Up Ruins, and he gives Nate the concession. But wow, that was so fast. But that's what Mono Red does. It wins fast. And now we're going to head on to Game 3. And we're back. Both players are shuffling up, getting ready to draw their opening 7. And if I'm Vince, the main thing I want to see in my opener is Scavenging Ooze. I love that card, and it is so primed against Nate's deck because it's an easy drop, it gains life by chewing through creatures in the yard, puts +1/+1 counters on itself, and makes it an insurmountable obstacle that Nate would have to chew through and just trying to deal damage to the Ooze. Now, looks like that's going to be in Vince's opener, and a Waterlogged Grove with the turn 1 elf. That is beautiful. That is really beautiful, especially because Vince is on the play. Let's see what Nate's got going. He's got some lands. It looks like he's really land heavy though. But does he want to go down to 6 with 3 lands in hand? He says nope. Vince starts off with a Waterlogged Grove into a Llanowar Elf. The turn 1 elf that Vince has been able to do every game in this match. And I gotta tell you folks, I'm not disappointed. Turn 1 elf is turn 1 elf. Nate starts off his turn by playing a mountain, and he's trying to decide on what creature he wants to deploy. He's got a Soulscar Mage, That's a 1-2, so it's going to be able to swing in at the elf on the next turn. But he's also got a Monastery Swiftspear to consider. It says, nope, Soulscar Mage. Next turn, I'm going to do some prowess junk. But Vince has drawn a Lovestruck Beast. He's going to play out the Temple Garden, taking 2 damage and tapping 3. And here it comes. Lovestruck Beast. A big old beef and beast noble. A 5/5 chunky boy. This guy is going to be tough for Nate to get through. Its 5 power and toughness is going to be... It's going to mean that Nate's going to have to devote a lot of resources to being able to chew through it. And it's on turn 2 as well. Now, if Nate had drawn like a burn spell or something, he could bait the beast into the block by swinging in with the Soulscar Mage. And then because of Soulscar Mage's ability, if he had something that would deal 3 damage, he could kill off the beast and save his Soulscar Mage. But still, that would be a huge fog and resource hog for Nate's turn. Even, you know, that's 5 damage that he could have been pointing out Vince's face. Now Nate, looking through the cards in hand, he's got mountains, he's got lands. What he really needs is more and more burn. Because that seems to be the way that Nate's gonna have to win this game. He's just gonna have to burn it out. But here comes a Castle End Breath, untapped because of the mountain. And Searing Blood, dealing 2 damage to the elf. And because it died, dealing 3 damage to Vince. A 2-for-1 kind of card. Lightning Bolt and Shock. But Vince doesn't seem too bothered. He plays a Glacial Fortress, passes the turn back. He's fine. He's got a 5/5 that's not going anywhere anytime soon. Nate draws for turn. And unfortunately, his plan of just playing out that Monastery Swiftspear and getting the prowess damage on has been stymied by that big freaking Lovestruck Beast. Nate plays his land for the turn, and here's Monastery Swiftspear. I mean, he could start like just trying to chump in the damage, but he's kind of stuck. That 5/5 can't attack, but it can sure as heck block. Nate considering the cards in his hand, deciding whether or not he wants to pass. I mean, that's really good news if you're on Vince's side of the field. If the mono red deck just passes without an attack, just playing out a dude, and that's what's happening. Nate passes the turn. Vince says, okay, end of turn. Here's a 2/3 flash flyer, Spell Queller. Granted, doesn't have any targets, but that's okay. It's a 2/3 with flash. Now, Nate deciding that he wants to respond with something, but the question is, what does he want to respond with? The creature game is currently out of the question here. He basically just needs to go for burn. And 4 damage from each Boros Charm adds up to 16 pretty well, and Vince is down at 15. But here's a Boros Charm, bringing Vince down to 11. End of turn. Spell Queller can't counter that, because Spell Queller's already in play. But Vince crashes in at Nate. He brings Nate down to 17, because he has to start getting the aggression in as soon as possible, because every draw from Nate's side of the field is a live draw, unless it's a land. And Nate passes the turn again. He's got 2 lands in hand. That's it. Vince has the time. He's got 2 collected companies in hand, but he's swinging in at Nate, bringing him down to 15. No land drop, but he passes the turn with a Spell Queller in hand, content to try and just exile anything Nate plays out. Nate has drawn another Boros Charm, but Spell Queller might just be hungry for a 4 damage spell. Now, Nate can crash in for possible 1 damage here, and then a little more on top of that with the Boros Charm. But, I mean, giving up a creature, that just might be what he has to do. That just might be the play. Swing in with the 2 dudes. Boros Charm would bring him down to 7, and 2 damage from the Monastery Swiftspear would be 5. But Nate passes the turn, and Vince drops a Spell Queller. And it looks like, here's Nate's plan. It's Boros Charm time. 4 damage at your face, Vince. He's still got 2 more charms in the deck, but he's going to fire off that Lightning Strike as well. Yep, here comes Lightning Strike. Nate knows that he's not going to win the creature war, his creatures are basically going to be blocking duty and hoping that Nate can survive long enough to draw out more burn. Unfortunately though, Scavenging Ooze is going to have something to say about all them burn spells. Vince plays land for turn, this time not shocking himself, and it looks like Scavenging Ooze is about to make his debut in this game, and it plays down, immediately exiling an elf, gaining Vince a very precious life and bringing him up to 5 as Vince decides to go on the attack once more with that Spell Queller, holding back 3 creatures instead of just jamming in with 2 Quellers. He's not going to lose to some random burn spell that's going to, get rid of a creature and then leave him dead to prowess triggers, but Nate has drawn a Wizard's Lightning off the top. Now the unfortunate thing is, putting creatures in the yard is just going to mean more food for the ooze to chew up. Nate just might have to go on the burn offensive here. That seems to be the only way he can win in this situation. He's counting up his lands. Unfortunately, Castle Embreth isn't going to be able to pump the creatures profitably here. It would make them 2/3s, and then maybe a Wizard's Lightning to make them 3/4s? But still, one would just get eaten up by the Lovestruck Beast. He's doing the math. Yeah, no matter how he attacks, the only damage that would get through is the Wizard's Lightning, and he would eat maybe a Spell Queller. I don't think Vince would be putting the Scavenging Ooze in front of one of the creatures. But instead, Nate just opts to deal 3 damage to Vince's face, bringing him down to 2, and hoping that he draws maybe a Ramming Up Ruins next turn. Or, any kind of spell. He plays out his land for the turn. He's got nothing. Here go, Vince. And Vince has run out of creatures for the Scavenging Ooze to eat. But he's got Collected Company in hand, and he's drawn a Dovin's Veto. So basically, the only thing off the top that Nate could do to win this game is Ramming Up Ruins. That's what he needs. But he swings in at Nate, dealing 2 damage and bringing him down to 11, going closer and closer to where he can go for that Alpha Strike lethal. Nate draws for the turn. It's an Inspiring Advantage, and it comes into play tapped. Now Vince is going to be able to drop Collected Company, the signature spell of that deck. And here's the top 6, 2 Deputy of Detention and Elvish Mystic, but here is a Lovestruck Beast and a Mystic coming into play, turning on those beasts, making them 5/5 attackers. But can Vince get in there for lethal this turn? He doesn't want to play to Nate's outs. He doesn't want to let him have a chance to get in there. He taps the Mystic for green, 2/3. He's lining up potential blockers, doing the math, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Nate's at 11. Deputy of Detention comes down, eats a blocker. Nate says, okay. And now Vince crashes in. Here's lethal. He assigns 1 Lovestruck Beast to the Monastery Sphere. Says, here's how the damage would play out. This is the best block you can do, buddy. And that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Nate counting it up. Yup, that looks like lethal. Yeah. Because he can only block the 1 Lovestruck Beast. And there is game, set, and match for Vince, taking it down 2-1 with Bant Company. And wow, what a freaking nail biter. But it looks like Nate is going to have to wait until next time to redeem himself on camera. And speaking of next time, this is only round 2 of the Darkside FNM Pioneer event. So stick around and get more decks, more gameplay, more coverage, and just a little bit more of your favorite smooth talking commentator. But that's it for us this time on Phat Pack Magic. Remember to tap that like button, subscribe to the channel for all kinds of tournaments, Vintage Cube, Pioneer, all kinds of stuff, and hit that notification bell and be updated whenever I put out a new video. And if you like the content and you want to support, check out the links in the description below. But until next time, may all your packs be fat.